welcome to another episode of Accessibility. It's a show on YouTube where I talk about the video game industry, accessibility and representation. Basically, how can we help more people to play games and more people to see themselves in the games they play? I've been a full-time video game critic for about the last 6.5 years, and that job is wonderful. It means I get to play so many video games. But it also means that I play lots of video games of lots of different genres, often sat very close to a screen, in long play sessions without any breaks, often when I'm kind of tired, and I mention all of those facts because I really struggle with motion sickness. Around 1/3 of the global population suffers from acute motion sickness, and in terms of video game accessibility, you'd be hard-pressed to find any other condition that has that sort of percentage coverage of the population. Nearly 1/3 of people might pick up your game and be having a great time with it and then go, oh, it's making me feel a bit sick, I don't know what to do about that, and put your game down entirely. And as such, I'm surprised that video game accessibility with regards to motion sickness isn't a bigger talking point. So today, on Accessibility, we're going to talk about motion sickness. We're going to talk about what it is, we're going to talk about what causes it, we're going to talk about what game developers can do to help lessen motion sickness in players, and we're going to talk about what players can do to lessen motion sickness outside of in-game settings. First up, what is motion sickness? Well, the human body is really good at telling, without the use of visual information, if it's moving or not. To simplify a complex discussion, there's fluid in your ears that moves around when you move, telling your brain that you're moving. However, if you trick your eyes into thinking that you're moving, but the fluid in your ears doesn't say you're moving, or vice versa, your brain gets mixed signals. This is when people typically become motion sick. In the real world, this is why a lot of people can't read a book in the back of a car. Their eyes are focused on something unmoving, while their body knows that it is moving. In video games, we have the opposite issue. Sometimes the video game we're looking at will make it look like we're moving when we are not, which can cause motion sickness. Motion sickness typically impacts people less when they're in control of movement, meaning that someone is perhaps less likely to experience motion sickness when playing a video game than someone watching that game get played. This is why you might find that you get motion sick in the back of a car, but don't when you're in control of a video game. But for many gamers, being in control of the action isn't enough to prevent nausea symptoms. While some people are more susceptible than others to motion sickness when gaming, everyone has the capability to become motion sick if presented with the right material. Imagine, for example, a first-person VR game where the player is meant to be walking around, but all of your head movements in-game were slightly delayed, so you'd move your head and the camera wouldn't move for a second, and occasionally your head movements would invert and you'd look right and the game would look left. You'd probably feel motion sick fast, no matter your personal tolerance. So, what kind of games most commonly cause motion sickness? Well, first-person games are far more common of a trigger for motion sickness than third-person games. While we don't know exact causes for this, the most common explanation is that in third-person games, cameras are typically more stable. They move around less erratically, with a wider field of view, and they're centred on an exterior perspective. In a third-person game, you're not seeing through a person's perspective, and as such the brain seems to have an easier time telling that the movement it's seeing is not meant to be a signal that the player's actual body is moving. If you're a player who suffers with motion sickness, or you're a developer who wants to alleviate motion sickness in your player base, what can be done? Well, there's some settings we're about to talk about that could definitely do with being standards in our industry, particularly for first-person games, but there's also things that you as a player can do to alleviate motion sickness above and beyond, and alongside, in-game settings. In terms of in-game settings that can help alleviate motion sickness, there's a couple of key options which are becoming more common in games over time, but I would really like to see them become standards in our industry. First up is having a toggle for head bob. Basically, some first-person games attempt to immerse players more fully in their worlds by having the camera move slightly up and down as the player walks through the game, to simulate actually walking. This is a huge motion sickness trigger for many, and should ideally always be able to be turned off in settings. This is a huge personal issue for me in gaming, and I've had to stop playing games entirely that I loved because I had no way to turn off head bob. Next is field of view sliders. For anyone unaware, An FOV slider basically adjusts how wide an angle of the world can be seen by the player in their first-person perspective. A wider field of view is less realistic, but allows the player to see more at any one time before they have to turn the camera. FOV sliders have been pretty common for a while on PC games, but they really need to become more of a standard on console games, as increasing the player's POV can go a long way to alleviating motion sickness. Additionally, allowing the player to lock your game's frame rate at something lower but more stable than your default frame rate may help, as in many cases frame rate instability can be a trigger for motion sickness. Ideally, people with motion sickness would be able to play all of their video games at a locked 60 frames a second, but failing that, a locked frame rate option is often more useful than a higher but more variable frame rate. Put simply, give players some options with regards to frame rate wherever possible. The ability to reduce or turn off motion blur can really help reduce motion sickness experiences. While this exists in first-person games to replicate the authentic real-world experience of looking around, it's one of the more useful settings toggles you can offer motion-sick players. It makes a really big difference. On top of that, allowing players to tweak their camera sensitivity can really help alleviate motion sickness. But there's also a variety of player-end solutions that can help reduce motion sickness when gaming, many of which are pretty easy to implement. Firstly, and this might seem obvious, but sitting further back from your screen, if possible, will likely help with motion sickness, as will playing in a more well-lit room, ideally with that light source coming from behind the screen. Give your brain all the help it can get, contextualising that the movement on screen that it's seeing is not you moving, as this can help to really alleviate symptoms. Also, try coming back to that same game after some rest, as lack of sleep is a very common trigger for motion sickness. If you've already found yourself becoming motion sick while playing a game, opening up a window and having a glass of water can help. I know an open window in the car used to help me with my travelling motion sickness, and having an open window when I first-person game seems to really help me too. Additionally, if you're going to push through it and keep playing, try to focus on static elements of the screen, such as your crosshairs, as focusing on an unmoving part of the screen can sometimes help. You can also look into over-the-counter motion sickness treatment options, as many designed for travel in vehicles can also help when gaming. Mileage will vary from person to person, but consider looking into ginger capsules, or motion sickness wristbands, or perhaps the most easy to access, chewing gum. The running theory is that the up and down movement of chewing gives you a sense of movement happening, which can help alleviate the symptoms, and I know that for myself, it's the only way I can play first-person games with mandatory head bob. Acute motion sickness impacts 1/3 of gamers globally, and it seems ridiculous to me that we haven't made looking after that group of gamers a priority, because we know the solutions that would help, and most of them don't require any additional resources. They're literally just let players turn off something you implemented. I get that increased FOV has a system resource allocation cost associated with it, and maybe not every game has the overhead to do that, but turning off head bob, turning off motion blur, increasing the turn sensitivity, things like that really make a big difference, and for most first-person video games there's no reason why you couldn't implement those as options. The solution to playing games as someone with motion sickness is to look for those settings that we've mentioned above, but also to give yourself the best chance possible of playing regardless of those settings. Have a window open, have a glass of water on hand, pay attention to things like an aiming reticle that doesn't move around the screen that gives you a fixed location. Sit away from the screen a bit, have a well-lit room that you play in. Basically, look at the things that help people who have motion sickness in cars and see if any of them work for you. Make sure that you're doing everything you can to fight your body's instincts when it comes to motion sickness, and look for those settings in games until they become standards in our industry. Motion sickness support in video games is a very fixable problem. We know the things that help. We've implemented them in games for years. We just need to standardise them more widely across the industry, because right now, around 1/3 of gamers might absolutely love your game and have to put it down because it makes them feel ill.